now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special episode today. On the podcast today, we have jack of all trades, really, a business owner, entrepreneur, elite level powerlifter, inventor of the slingshot hip circle, and now the steak shake, the Meathead Millionaire, your favorite influencer's influence, Mark Smelly Bell. How you doing, bud?
Like the intro. Appreciate it. I'm doing great.
So it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. I've been a fan of you ever since I got introduced to your family through your brother's documentary.
Yeah.
Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Yeah.
And ever since then, been following your career, and I love what you're doing out there in Sacramento, and you're now a worldwide influence in the fitness industry.
Appreciate it.
So what have you been up to, man? What's the newest, the latest, and the greatest coming out of Slingshot right now?
Always working on, self-improvement and continuing to just, I guess, learn and advance. I'm a big believer that the greatest kind of marker of success is just progress. And so just like anybody else, just trying to figure out a way to progress and be better than I was yesterday. And so therefore, I'm only as good as my last victory, and so I got to keep figuring out ways of putting up points on the scoreboard day in and day out. I can't just, live off of, I guess actually technically I could just live off of the idea of the slingshot, but
you made it.
I want to continue to progress forward and continue to have successes, and then also continue to bring on other people here at Slingshot World Headquarters in West Sacramento. Continue to bring on other people and give them some great opportunities as well.
So, Mark, what would you say is your driving force? What makes you keep going? You just want to what makes you want to push that extra rep and push that extra step in professional achievements?
Just to continue to learn and know how far you can get, and there's so much room for advancement that it's ridiculous. I still make a lot of errors. I still mess up all the time. In fact, I still do exercises that I get hurt from. I still sometimes overtrain. I still sometimes will underdo it. It doesn't make any sense that still happens, because you figure, hey, wouldn't you just kind of keep track of what worked and what doesn't, and then kind of find a happy medium between the two? But those things still happen, and I still, I always have goals. I always have things that I want to shoot for and aim for. The goals are not always clearly defined, so that sometimes makes it hard to figure out. You're trying to get good at something, but you don't know how good you want to get at it. But anyway, I take a lot of pride in trying to spin a lot of plates at one time and make it seem fairly easy. And I like the challenge of that. I like the challenge, but the real trick, the illusion is that I'm not really spinning different plates at one time. I am working and focusing in and honing in on a particular target, a particular thing. And then I have some side stuff that I work on occasionally, but I always use Stan Efforting as a great example. When Stan came to Super Training Gym and he wanted to break some all-time world records, he later left Super Training and pursued becoming a professional bodybuilder. What people don't really realize is people are like, oh, wow, he broke world records in powerlifting and he's a professional bodybuilder. Those two things are separate from each other. When he wanted to powerlift, he hung around with big fat powerlifters like myself. When he wanted to bodybuild, he hung around the best. He hung around Flex Wheeler, and he learned under the tutelage of Flex Wheeler. So when he was powerlifting, he powerlifted and hung out with powerlifters. And when he did bodybuilding, he hung around bodybuilders. For me, I try to kind of, I guess, do something similar in the sense that if I'm going to continue to better myself, I want to get around like-minded people that also want to get better. And then it makes everything a little bit easier on me. So while it may seem like I'm spinning all these different plates, how do you put out so much content? How do you do this? How do you do that? Well, I don't physically shoot any of the YouTube videos. I used to shoot a lot of them. I used to edit a lot of them myself as well. but I don't shoot them anymore. I don't physically sew together slingshots, despite what people might think. I'm not actually physically making like hip circles. I'm not actually physically, slaughtering a cow and blending it up into a blender and and making the steak shake, So it's all stuff that I have other people do, and it's as simple as like me just texting somebody from my smartphone. I'm pretty sure I even see sometimes homeless people walking around with a smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone, so I'm just, while it may look difficult or challenging or whatever it might look like, actually a lot of the things have been fairly easy. But the reason why they've been fairly easy is just because I've been on a mission for a very long time to make progress, which again, I think is the ultimate indicator of success. It's just, figuring out a way to continue to move forward every single day. So what drives me is the quest. What drives me is the quest to get better, not necessarily the destination, because I think maybe people have it twisted when it comes to like, they think they're going to be a lot happier when they do this or when they do that. But I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, you're only as happy as you make up your mind to be. So you're not necessarily going to be happier when you get to a destination. I actually think that you'll be happier going through the journey, which you kind of hear that a lot, right? And it sounds like nonsense, but you think about your significant other when you first met, like, man, like that, what an amazing time that was. When you first fell in love, like it was just like unbelievable. And then, now I've been with my wife for 20 years, so I could fucking care less at this point, right? No, I don't mean that.
Bite. We're gonna keep that sound bite.
I did have a question on that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't mean to interrupt you on that. But first of all, I remember when the Power Project was you on your phone and you would turn your hat to the side and give a little rap to the audience. There you go. I remember that, but I did have a question about that. You're from Poughkeepsie, correct?
Straight out of Poughkeepsie, New York. Yeah. Yep.
And then following your career, you went from, all over the place, but you went to West Side Barbell, trained with Louis Simmons. You were actually in LA, when you met your wife, correct? In that general area, but you were in the bodybuilding scene. You were in that, you were chasing the atmosphere in those places. Now you go to West Sacramento. I'm from the Bay Area. I know for a fact that in West Sacramento, it wasn't really anything happening. Then all of a sudden you and then Jesse Burdick and then Kelly Starrett, everybody started coming out at the same time. But how did it differ versus chasing the atmosphere like you were versus creating the atmosphere? How'd you overcome that hurdle?
Great job with your question there. I've never actually been asked anything quite like that. That's actually fascinating. But I think something I've always been a big believer in, and people think sometimes some of the stuff I say is a little weird, but I think the gym is like in your heart. I think like your idea of what you're going to do with the equipment that you have or the equipment you have access to is in your heart. I've heard so many people say, oh man, my gym is lame. Like we don't have anybody like that in our area and this and that. And like, I could think back to when I used to train at Gold's Gym when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. I was a quote unquote nobody. Like I did powerlift at that time. I was pretty strong. But I still found ways of having like savages train with me. And for me to train with savages, I trained with a guy named Ron Fedko, who actually won an Academy Award for his work in mathematics, which is really weird, but he developed I know, he is a fucking genius and a madman too.
I can barely add plates.
I know, right? Yeah, you're like, is that 675? Is that 580? You fucking lose track. Ron Fedko was one of my original powerlifting coaches, along with my brother as well, and he was able to win an Academy Award through his work at Stanford, where he was a professor in mathematics and physics. He had a PhD, and he was able to make that math work for special effects. So like I've always been around these people that just had these, really crazy like personalities, crazy amounts of intelligence. That guy just operated at a different level. But even because I was at Gold's Gym and because I had some unconventional thinking with my training, I'm doing box squats with bands, and I didn't care that it was hard to set it up or difficult to set it up. I didn't care that no one else at the time didn't use any bands or chains. I would lug the chains into the gym. I actually found like an area in the gym where I like locked up these chains and I kept them there. Me and my brother would train with them. I would bring bands into the gym. Ron Fedko, who I trained with, would bring a deadlift bar. He'd pull a deadlift bar to the back of his Corvette and fucking walk through the front door with it when it was deadlift day. So we didn't let any like hurdles get in our way. The gym was like inside our heart. The Gold's Gym Venice is an amazing place to train, but it's not a great environment necessarily for powerlifting. Like they don't even have, at the time, they just didn't even have a deadlift platform. You just kind of deadlift wherever you wanted. They don't have like a deadlift jack. So
I mean, that's the mecca of bodybuilding, not powerlifting. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Me and a couple friends were like, well, let's just make it. Let's just buy it. Let's just figure out ways
of manufacture getting one for things. Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. We had people make sleds for us. We had people make a deadlift jack for us. All kinds of little things like that really made it a lot easier to do some of those lifts. And then guys like Mike O'Tren and a bunch of other lifters in there started training with us, football players from USC. And again, I was bigger, stronger, faster, is probably 10 years from coming out at that point. And like, there's no social media. I didn't know anybody. So people that talk about not having something in their area or things like that, I'm always like, well, you got to build it yourself. So I built what I thought was the greatest gym in the world well before I ever had Super Training Gym. And that was kind of inside my own heart.
Okay. What I want to know is that, does that stem from, like, a lot of people, they don't necessarily have that. They have to learn that mindset. But for you, you've talked multiple times about your struggles in school and how you went to the physicality of, and that was your strength. You've actually spoken about your mother taking you to the side and saying, hey, giving you those pep talks, that's what you need to focus on. Do you feel like that was ingrained in that young age where it's like, I'm gonna take this to the fullest, and no matter where I'm at, I'm going to get as much as I can out of this one venture?
With my favorite movie being Rocky, I can't help but think of the line in Rocky of Adrian asking Rocky, why he chose to use like his body. And he's like, because I can't use my brain and I can't sing or dance, and that's the same thing with me. Is I ain't got no singing in this body, and I certainly got no dancing going on either. So I had to figure out something. And my mom, was always amazing at kind of pointing out the good that we had inside of us, the things that we had that were, made us special or made us different. A lot of moms are like that, where they're able to find the little knacks and little things that you do and communicate out to you, like how special those things are. In terms of like my creativity, entrepreneurship, some of those things that developed later on, those are byproducts, I think, of my family and my family environment and just how I grew up. I have vivid memories of hanging out at my grandparents' house and just all of us kids, like shit ton of kids, like 20 kids or maybe 15 kids just running around doing whatever we wanted. The adults would be doing what they wanted. We would be doing what we wanted outside. And, I was the youngest in the entire family for quite some time. And so I would go inside, I was crying because somebody pushed me or they weren't being fair or whatever it was. And my uncles and stuff, they would just laugh at me. They'd be like, get the hell out of here, like, get back out there and play. Or like, actually, one of my uncles, one time, he kind of showed me through the window. He pulled the window curtain aside and he said, hey, Mark, he's like, I know you're really upset and they probably are mistreating you because you are the youngest, but they're going to do that. You're smaller than them. You're younger than them. And that's, and I'm crying so bad. I got snot all over me and I'm going, one of those ones where you can't breathe, one of those
heavy
good
cries. Yeah.
When you're a kid and the snot and the tears are all kind of coming together and going into your mouth all at the same time. My uncle basically just pointed out to me as we looked out the window, he's like, look at how much fun everyone's still having out there. And he's like, you can make a choice to be here and be sad and to be a victim. He's like, or you can kind of get back out there and, play some wiffle ball or some basketball. Or if none of them are playing with you the way that you want, then just do your own thing, And so
would that be your first, fuck your elbow moment?
Yeah, exactly. And my uncle was he was very very kind about it, but yeah, he's basically saying, you know, you can stay in here with me and be a pussy, or you can get back out there and probably have a lot more fun before the, you know, before the sun goes down. I'd also like to point out that my grandfather was an entrepreneur. My grandfather, he used to work on the railroad. And then after that, he was a mechanic. He was in the military and stuff as well, but he was a mechanic, and the guy could work on or fix or build anything. He built his own home. So growing up and going to my grandfather's house a lot as a kid, and having my dad tell me like, yeah, like I remember when your grandpa and we built that fireplace, or we built this or built that. I was always like fascinated by that. I was always like, what the fuck? You guys built this house? Like, I don't even know how to use a hammer or nails, and I still don't know how to do any of that shit. But it was always fascinating to me. And then to learn that my grandfather worked on boats and planes. He took an engine from one of the cars that he had, and he put it into a plane that he actually would fly. I mean, you got to be pretty confident in yourself as a mechanic to pull off some shit like that. But he had a lot of ingenuity. He had a lot of creativity, and he would even advertise. He made up shirts and hats that said, his name was Sheldon. So he'd have shirts and hats that said Shell Bell Auto on it and stuff like that. I always just thought, this is so cool. This is so neat. He doesn't have a boss. My dad lost his job with IBM when I was a teenager. My dad worked for IBM for like 20 years, and my dad just didn't even blink. He didn't come home and cry. He just started his own business. He started his own tax practice. He started his own real estate business, and he was off to the races. And 5 years later, he made way more money than he ever made with IBM. It took him a while. 5 years is not a short period of time when you have a family to feed and stuff like that. But I saw a lot of that stuff as a kid, and that really opened up my mindset to understanding the value of being able to do stuff for yourself.
So you were from a young age exposed to that type of environment where obstacles were opportunities, as opposed to this is a 100%. Chance to make you, not break you. So you would fully embrace it as to, what can I do? What can I do with this?
And on your most recent, not most, but one of your recent podcasts with Knees Over Toes guy, he actually, Ben Patrick actually made a reference to how you are. It was kind of like not a throwaway, but a little comment that I picked up on how you have managed to be yourself in this industry, like at all times. Like I've seen all different types of videos of you, and you're always yourself within that family example of kind of making your own path. Is that how important has that been in your career as far as maintaining who you are and having that directly reflect within your brand?
You know, I think, you know, I appreciate when people say that. But I think that over the years, I have changed a lot. I've gone through transformations. Like I used to be 100 pounds heavier, for example. I think that I used to kind of live under a lot of like rules and a lot of things that I just no longer believe to be true any further. I have changed my mindset quite a bit. I was fortunate that I never really had a broke mindset necessarily. But I noticed myself over the years being able to work on being less negative. And I have made a lot of changes, but in terms of like being myself, I just kind of go back to my roots of where this all started and how this all began. The Super Training Gym is free, and I've had Super Training Gym since 2006, and I've been a power lifter since I was a kid. And all of this is just rooted in, I just wanted to get stronger. I was not good in school, and I was pretty good in the gym. And so I was like, well, let me see what that looks like. Just like if somebody wasn't good, I didn't feel like they were sufficient, playing basketball and baseball and football, maybe they would turn to some academics. Maybe they would turn to something or maybe they would turn to art or music, and they would find, okay, you know what? I'm starting out a little bit ahead of other people in this area. So let me see what it looks like if I was to stick to that. And so that was my mindset from the beginning. And I'm what I'm grateful for, and what makes it easier for me to not be swayed one way or the other is the fact that I'm grateful that I found it so early. You know, I'm very fortunate. I had two really supportive parents, and I had two great brothers that were supportive as well. My oldest brother, Mad Dog, teaching me and my brother Chris the values of training and lifting weights. And we had like a Marcy Monster type of thing, it was called, from Sears, which had a bench press on one side and a like a squat thing on another, a lat pull down piece. And it was a giant piece of shit, but like that's kind of how I got my
But
that's
at the
how I
time, it
got
was
my
the greatest
start.
thing ever. So
It was the greatest thing ever. And I'm grateful, you know, that I was able to find something that I really, really enjoy and really love at such a young age. And it's rare to find that, because in order to be interested in something, I have a little bit of a theory on it. I think that if you're not going to be any good at it at all, if you're not going to be good at that thing at all, I don't think you'll be that interested in it. Like if it just doesn't appear that it's in the cards for you to do really well in it, you probably really won't care about it. And then therefore, it'll be really hard to build any sort of consistency in that area. Like for me with school, like I kind of wish that I just knew that all this has to do is with your interest level. Like you're not necessarily dumb. Maybe you're learning a little slower than some of the other kids. But the truth is, I just don't think you really give a fuck about some of this stuff. And if we found stuff that you cared about, you would be able to show your intelligence. You'd be able to show your skill set. And so nowadays, for me, the main thing is to, you know, is to have an even mind, to keep my mind at baseline so that I can explore the skill sets that I have. I can't get caught up in being too mad about something I see on the news. I can't be too mad about, you know, something I see on social media or whatever. I just have learned that it's a waste of time to get moved off that baseline, because if you get moved off that baseline, how good is your decision-making skills going to be towards your food, towards your health, towards your nutrition, towards your family, towards your other relationships, your other responsibilities? All those things are going to be compromised a lot. And at the end of the day, or the end of the week, you're going to say, oh man, I had a long week. It's been rough. And you're like, let me have a couple drinks, you know, and then you have a couple drinks, then you have some pizza or whatever it is. And you're kind of, a lot of the things that you were aiming for and shooting for now are kind of blown to pieces at that point. And you got to figure out a way to kind of restart everything. And how much energy does it take to restart something? You know, it takes hardly any energy at all to like coast down a hill, right? So that's the way I kind of look at it. When I'm eating good, when I'm making the right decisions, when everything's on point, I'm kind of coasting downhill. Like I'm not challenging my progression at all. But as soon as I go and I choose to do something different, that's when, you know, the brakes hit, and now I got to start the car, you know, going uphill. And it's like, okay, I need to get back into that routine, even if it's just a small little break. I do it all the time, but even that small little break, I just know the amount of energy it's going to take to restart everything back up again.
So you would say you're very focus driven, that you know exactly what you kind of want to achieve, even if it's on a daily basis. You have your mental agenda, or maybe you wrote it down, or somewhere on your smartphone, of what you want to do, because you don't want it to deviate and worry about other shit that just doesn't matter, that you know you can affect change in. You can affect change with what you do with yourself, not because you have control over that, but you don't have control over the other things, so why bother?
Yeah, you know, so there is one thing that you'll always have control over, as long as you have a healthy brain, and that's your mindset. You know, you will always have control over that. No one else can control that until Elon Musk, you know, gives us the Neuralink or something like that, right? But you know, it's important to know that. It's important to know that, you know, no one can make you feel any type of way. No situation can make you feel any type of way. It's all up to you and how you want to interpret it and what you want to do with the information. The input that we get, you know, we don't have to grant it any sort of strength. You know, somebody has a racial slur for you, or somebody calls you something derogatory or mean, the easiest way to give that power and to give that fuel is to say fuck you and to fight them back. But you could have just as easily not given that any credit at all, and just, I know it's not easy, but just completely ignore it and just say, that comment on social media or that thing that someone said to me, anybody that's going to say something that's intentionally hurtful to you, you have to you have to put them in a new category, because if that person was able to hurt you, it means that you gave them high value assignment in your life somewhere, and you have to reevaluate that value assignment. Like, why would you give any credence to anything that anyone says on social media, especially if it's somebody that you don't know? Like, it's wild, right? And I'm guilty. This is how I know about these things. But we tend to really, like, it's easy to say, oh, I don't give a fuck what other people think. Everyone cares about what other people think. Human beings are not designed very well to, live on our own, or to be isolated or alone. I mean, the worst criminals, the worst thing they do to them is they put them in isolation, right? And so I just kind of try to think, in those terms of, like, what are the things that are in my control? What are the things that I can do? And when you recognize that you're in control of your own mind and you're in control of a lot of your own thoughts, not always in control of exactly what you think, because there's a lot of random shit that pops in there, but we're in control over how we think about those thoughts. We're also in control of how we respond to what it is that we're going to do. We're also responsible and in control of what label we give something, and how we categorize something. And so when you start to understand that, life gets to be a lot easier. And then you can really just say, you know what, I'm just going to side up with the stuff that's for me, and the things that are against me. One of the quotes here at the gym is, you're either in or you're in the way. So things that are in with me, the things that are for me, I'm down with those things. Things that aren't like that, then I'm not mad at those things. I don't say anything negative towards those things. I just am neutral towards those things. I just don't care. I don't allow them to. I do my best to not allow them to affect me.